Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going to be exploring interdisciplinary learning.
Ooh.
It's this idea of using knowledge from a whole bunch of different fields to really understand a topic or
Yeah.
solve a problem. And it just feels like this approach is becoming more and more crucial in our
Oh,
world, right?
absolutely. The world's getting so complex, and the challenges we're facing today, they just don't fit neatly into any one category anymore.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it, climate change, artificial intelligence, all these issues,
They're huge.
they demand a much broader perspective.
It's true. It's like this whole thing with just specializing in one tiny area. It doesn't really work anymore.
Doesn't cut it.
So whether you're here to get ready for a presentation or understand a new field or just because you're curious, we've got academic papers and even some fun YouTube videos to help us out today.
That's right. We've got a really cool analogy from one of the sources, actually.
Oh.
They talk about pillars and lintels to explain interdisciplinary learning.
Ooh. I love a good analogy.
Yeah. Okay, so imagine each academic discipline, like history, biology, physics, whatever, as a strong foundational pillar.
Okay.
These pillars represent the depth of knowledge within each field.
All right. So each subject's a pillar. Got it.
Exactly. Now, the lintel is the connecting beam above those pillars.
Okay.
Interdisciplinary learning is that lintel.
Okay.
It bridges the separate disciplines together.
Yeah.
It creates this structure that's so much stronger and more insightful than any single pillar it could be on its own.
So it's not just like studying a bunch of different subjects separately. It's about finding those connections,
Exactly.
making those bridges, creating something totally new.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, this isn't just some theory. It's happening in the real world all the time.
Oh, I bet. Give me an example.
Okay. So the source actually points to the 2014 Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Okay.
It was awarded to physicists who were doing research in, wait for it, biology labs.
What? That's so cool.
I know. And their work led to some amazing breakthroughs in medicine.
Wow. That's a perfect example of breaking down the barriers between fields and coming up with some amazing discoveries.
It is, and it highlights why this matters for you as we deal with more and more complex issues.
Yeah.
Being able to draw from all these disciplines gives you such a huge advantage.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm starting to see why interdisciplinary learning is so important. But let's dig a little deeper into why should our listener care about this?
Okay. Well, think about the challenges we're facing right now. Climate change, social inequality, rapid technological advancements. None of those fit neatly into one academic box.
You're so right. You can't just look at climate change through the lens of environmental science. You have to consider the economic, political, social implications, too.
Exactly. One of the YouTube videos we watched had this great example. Imagine you're trying to design a sustainable city.
Okay.
You would need engineers for the infrastructure, sociologists for the community, needs environmental scientists for the ecological impact.
So many different types of people.
I know. It's a massive project.
It's like assembling a team of superheroes to save the planet.
And each with their own unique perspective.
Right. And then you actually have a chance at creating something truly innovative.
Yes. And effective.
Yeah.
And this kind of collaborative, interdisciplinary approach is exactly what employers are looking for.
Oh, yeah. They want graduates who can think critically, solve problems creatively.
Yes.
Communicate effectively across different teams. It's not just about being an expert in one tiny area anymore.
It's not.
Yeah.
And here's a really interesting statistic.
Yeah.
The total amount of human knowledge is estimated to be doubling every decade.
Whoa. That is both mind-blowing and also kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to keep up with that?
That's where interdisciplinary learning comes in. It helps you navigate all that information overload and see those connections between things that seem like totally separate fields.
So it's like having a superpower for the information age.
It is.
Yeah.
Can cut through the noise, connect the dots, see patterns that other people miss.
That's amazing. And this really connects directly to how work is changing too, right?
It does. Our sources highlight that the workplace is becoming increasingly project-based and networked.
So instead of everyone working in their own little silos, it's all about collaboration and flexibility.
Yes, being able to adapt to new challenges and new projects.
So interdisciplinary skills like being able to work in different teams, communicate across disciplines, synthesize different perspectives, all that stuff's becoming so essential.
Essential, not just a nice to have.
Okay. So we've established that interdisciplinary learning is super crucial for tackling these complex problems and thriving in our rapidly changing world. But how does it actually work in practice?
Right.
It can't always be easy to break out of those traditional boundaries.
It's definitely a challenge. One source actually used the example of the Scottish education system,
Okay.
which is really deeply rooted in those individual subjects.
Yeah.
And they found it quite challenging to effectively integrate interdisciplinary learning.
I can see how that would be tricky. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. So how are educators approaching this challenge? What are some of the strategies they're using to make it work?
Well, there are a few different approaches. Some schools are experimenting with these large-scale events.
Okay.
It's like having a whole grade level work on a thematic project that uses knowledge from a bunch of different subjects.
Could you give me an example?
Okay. Imagine a school doing a year-long project on sustainability.
Okay.
Students could work in teams to design eco-friendly solutions for their community using knowledge from science, engineering, economics, and even the arts.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be really engaging.
It can be really powerful for sparking students' interest and showing them how what they're learning applies to the real world.
But I imagine there are some challenges with this approach too, especially when you're dealing with so many students at once.
There are definitely challenges. One of the biggest is ensuring disciplinary rigor. How do you make sure that students are developing a deep understanding of the underlying concepts from each discipline?
Yeah. You don't want them just skimming the surface.
Exactly. And assessment becomes tricky too. How do you fairly evaluate individual learning in a massive group project?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's why some schools are opting for more of a classroom-based approach.
They are.
So instead of these big events, they're finding ways to integrate it directly into the classroom.
Exactly. This usually involves teachers from different departments teaming up to design integrated units or projects. Like a history teacher and a science teacher might collaborate on a unit about the scientific revolution.
That's so cool, exploring both the historical context and the scientific breakthroughs.
Exactly.
I love that.
It allows for a much deeper dive into the subject and a more seamless integration of different disciplines.
But I bet that takes a ton of planning and coordination.
A lot of communication and the willingness to step outside of one's comfort zone, but the sources say it's worth the effort.
Okay. So we've looked at a couple of different approaches to implementing interdisciplinary learning, but before we move on, is there anything else our listeners should keep in mind?
Yes. One of the big takeaways from the sources is this: interdisciplinary learning shouldn't replace disciplinary knowledge.
Right. It's not about abandoning the core subjects.
Exactly. You need that strong foundation in individual disciplines.
Right. It's about building on that foundation.
Yes.
Making connections, seeing the big picture, applying knowledge in new ways.
Exactly. And one thing that really stood out to me is that interdisciplinary learning's impact goes way beyond the classroom.
Oh, for sure. Tell me more.
Some sources even argue that it's crucial for engaging students who might be struggling in more traditional educational settings.
I can see that. When you connect learning to the real world and give students the chance to work on projects that have a real impact, that can be so motivating.
It can. One source talked about the benefits of connecting schools with employers and the community through interdisciplinary projects. Like, imagine students working with local businesses to design a marketing campaign or collaborating with community organizations to address an environmental issue.
That's amazing. It makes learning so relevant.
It does.
It's not just about memorizing facts from a textbook. It's about applying those skills to real problems.
Exactly. And this experiential learning can be so powerful, especially for students who don't always thrive in a traditional classroom. It can help bridge that attainment gap and open up new paths to success.
I'm really starting to see how interdisciplinary learning can be a game changer both inside and outside of school. But let's get down to it. Does it actually work? What does the research say?
That's a great question. And while the research is still developing, there's growing evidence to support the benefits of interdisciplinary learning.
Okay, tell me more.
Studies have shown that integrating science and math can lead to improved student achievement in both subjects.
So it's not just about making learning more fun, it actually leads to better results.
It does, and it goes beyond grades, too.
Yeah.
There's evidence that it can have a positive impact on student interest and attitudes, particularly in STEM fields.
That's huge. We need all the bright young minds we can get passionate about STEM.
We do. And here's another interesting finding. Countries that encourage broader subject choices after the age of 16 tend to have higher participation rates in STEM.
That's fascinating. So by exposing students to more subjects and helping them make those connections across disciplines, we might actually be increasing access to and interest in these really important areas of study.
Exactly. And that's crucial as we face a growing demand for STEM professionals.
Okay, so we've got evidence that interdisciplinary learning can boost academic achievement. spark interest in STEM, and equip students with the skills they need for the future. But there's one more benefit we need to talk about: creativity.
Yes, creativity, that all-important ingredient for innovation and progress.
How does interdisciplinary learning foster creativity?
Well, remember our pillars and lintels analogy.
I do.
Think about the spaces between the pillars. Those are the breeding grounds for creative connections.
So it's about looking beyond the confines of one discipline and seeing those unexpected connections?
It's exactly. Interdisciplinary learning encourages students to think outside the box, challenge assumptions, and combine ideas in new ways.
So you're basically training your brain to become a master connector.
You are. Always searching for those links and patterns that spark those aha moments.
And that's a skill that can help you no matter what you do in life.
It is. Whether you're a scientist, an artist, an entrepreneur, whatever.
The ability to come up with new ideas is essential for success.
And as our world gets more complex and more interconnected, this ability to think creatively and draw from a variety of knowledge and perspectives will only become more valuable.
So interdisciplinary learning isn't just about acquiring knowledge, it's about developing a whole mindset.
A way of thinking that embraces complexity, seeks connections, and fuels creativity.
And it's about empowering you, the listener, to be a lifelong learner.
Adaptable and ready to tackle any challenge that comes your way.
Because in a world where knowledge is always evolving, the ability to connect the dots, see the big picture, think creatively are the skills that will really set you apart.
They will. It's not even just what you know. It's about how you use that knowledge.
Yeah.
Interdisciplinary learning really encourages a shift from passive learning to active engagement.
I've always been a hands-on learner. Give me a real-world project over a textbook any day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about moving away from memorizing facts and formulas and toward applying that knowledge.
Yeah.
Experimenting, collaborating.
Yeah.
Really making it your own.
The sources we looked at really emphasize that employers today aren't as interested in people who can just regurgitate information. They're looking for problem solvers, critical thinkers, effective communicators.
Yeah.
People who can actually do things with what they know.
Exactly. All skills that are honed through this interdisciplinary learning. It's about making those connections between learning and actually applying it to the real world.
Right.
Seeing how the different pieces fit together to solve problems.
One of the YouTube videos we watched made a really great point about experiential learning. Things like simulations, field work, even working with professionals on actual projects.
Those hands-on experiences can be so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. It's one thing to read about renewable energy in a textbook,
Right.
but it's another thing to actually design and build a solar-powered device.
Totally. Imagine a student learning about renewable energy sources in the classroom.
Okay.
They're getting the theoretical knowledge, but it's still kind of abstract.
Right, textbooks, diagrams.
Exactly. Now imagine that same student working with a team to design and build a solar-powered device.
Okay.
Maybe a charging station for phones or a small-scale irrigation system for their community.
Now we're talking.
Now it's not just theory. They're actually putting those concepts into practice.
Yeah.
Troubleshooting problems, collaborating.
That's when it clicks.
Exactly. And they're developing all those crucial skills.
Yeah.
Collaboration, communicate, creative problem solving.
And I bet their sense of ownership over the project just goes through the roof.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not just an assignment anymore. They're creating something tangible, something that could help their community.
They are. And it also helps them see that learning doesn't have to be limited to a classroom. It can happen anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working on something that you're passionate about.
This brings up a good point. Interdisciplinary learning isn't just about academics. It's about nurturing a love of learning that lasts a lifetime.
It is fostering curiosity,
Yeah.
that drive to explore, to question things, to connect ideas.
To be an active learner.
Exactly.
And that's something that's going to benefit you no matter what you do in life.
No matter what path you choose.
With all this buzz around interdisciplinary learning, is it just a trend? Or is this something more?
Right. Is this here to stay?
Yeah.
Well, the sources we've looked at seem to suggest that this shift towards interdisciplinary thinking is happening because our world is so complex. We need more holistic, integrated solutions.
You think about it. Climate change, global pandemics, rapid tech advancements.
Those huge issues.
Yeah. They require us to break down the walls between disciplines and look at them from all angles.
We can't rely on those simple solutions anymore.
So as these challenges keep evolving, so will our need for people who can think across boundaries and synthesize knowledge from a bunch of different fields.
Exactly. And adapt to new situations.
It feels like we're moving away from specialization to a more interconnected, collaborative approach to knowledge.
It does. One of the research papers we looked at actually mentioned T-shaped individuals. Have you heard of that?
T-shaped individuals. I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Okay, so picture the letter T.
Okay.
The vertical line represents deep expertise in a specific discipline.
So that's your specialist, the engineer, the biologist, the historian,
Yeah.
who has all that deep knowledge in their field.
Right. Now, the horizontal line of the T represents a broad range of knowledge and skills across other disciplines.
Oh, so they have depth in one area, but they can also branch out and collaborate with other experts.
Exactly. And they can connect the dots between those seemingly unrelated areas.
So they're both a specialist and a generalist.
Yes. And this T-shaped skill set is becoming more and more valuable.
It's like being a Renaissance person for the 21st century.
It kind of is. It's about embracing the interconnectedness of knowledge and realizing that the best solutions often come from those unexpected collaborations.
Right. Bringing together people with different expertise and perspectives.
Exactly.
So for our listeners who are thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but how do I actually start incorporating interdisciplinary learning into my own life? What advice would you give them?
That's a great question. I think the first and most important thing is don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
Let's try something new.
Yes, seek out opportunities to learn about things that are different.
Even if they seem completely unrelated to what you're currently doing.
Exactly. Embrace that curiosity, that willingness to explore.
And you never know what connections you might make.
You really don't. Maybe you love history, but you've always been interested in coding.
Or maybe you're a scientist who secretly wants to write poetry.
It could happen.
Yeah.
Those seemingly different interests could actually become your biggest strengths. Another key piece of advice, embrace collaboration. Work with people from different backgrounds.
Yeah. You could join a cross-functional team at work, volunteer for a community project, or just have conversations with people outside your usual circle.
Exactly. All of those interactions can spark new ideas and challenge your assumptions.
They can help you see things in a new light.
They can. And finally, remember, interdisciplinary learning is a journey. It's about developing a mindset of curiosity,
Right.
a commitment to keep learning, and a willingness to try new ways of thinking.
It's about moving beyond those easy answers and recognizing that complex problems require complex solutions.
Exactly. And that the best solutions often come from bringing together all those different perspectives and knowledge from different fields.
It's about finding those unexpected intersections where new insights emerge.
It is. So as you continue learning, keep asking questions, keep seeking out those diverse perspectives, and keep making those connections.
Because in our interdisciplinary world, those are the skills that will make all the difference. You know, this whole conversation's got me thinking, how can our listeners actually apply these ideas to their own lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the best part is this approach isn't just for classrooms. It's a way of thinking you can use anywhere.
It is. It really is. So to our listeners, what are some tough challenges you're facing right now at work, in your personal life? Anything that might benefit from this kind of approach?
Yeah, think about those problems that just feel stuck. You know, the ones with no easy answers.
Like maybe you're trying to get your team to work more efficiently or launch a new product, even just dealing with a tough personal decision.
Exactly. Or maybe you just feel stuck in a rut, looking for a fresh perspective on your work.
Whatever it is, think about how different viewpoints, different knowledge could help.
Yeah. Would it help to talk to someone outside your usual circle? Someone with different skills or a different background?
Totally. Or could you look at the problem through a different lens? Like, what if you look at your marketing challenge from a behavioral economics perspective?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Or what if you tackled writer's block using design thinking principles?
It's all about breaking free from those old ways of thinking and seeing the world in new ways.
And you never know. You might just have that aha moment that leads to a breakthrough.
You might. So as we wrap up this deep dive into interdisciplinary learning, don't let the conversation end here.
Keep learning. Keep exploring. Look for examples of interdisciplinary work in your own field.
Read articles, watch videos, talk to people who are pushing the boundaries.
Most importantly, don't be afraid to experiment. Try applying these ideas to your own challenges.
Because the more you open yourself up to new ways of thinking, the better you'll be able to handle all the crazy changes happening in our world.
So true. It's been amazing diving deep with you all today.
It has.
Until next time, keep those minds open, keep making those connections, and keep those aha moments coming.
And keep learning.
Happy learning, everybody!